All right, Michael Kaskey-Blomain, let's dive into this now and get some thoughts from you. Number one, does the news of Butler, the Rockets being interested in Butler, if you're a Sixers fan, should that worry you at all? Does that scream that something's going on here?
So, Mike, I think, the Rockets have long been interested in Jimmy. There was rumors before the Sixers traded for him last year that the Rockets were trying to offer up to 4 first-round picks from Minnesota to land him. I think it's, been Daryl Morey's, one thing that's been on his mind, pairing Butler with, Harden and now Paul. But I don't think that really changes anything in terms of the Sixers, especially since the Rockets aren't a team that could sign him outright. They would need to obviously jump through hurdles in terms of, a sign-in trade and give up, big chunks of their rotation in order to make it happen. I just think it seems, it seems like a long shot that he would go there, that he would want to go there, first of all, and second of all, even if he did, that it would be, something that would be able to be feasible on both ends. So I think, Jimmy's a guy that's definitely in demand. I know you had a piece up on the website talking about how there's, several teams interested in him. And I think the Rockets are just another team, but I don't think that they're, the Sixers are still in the driver's seat, the way I see it.
If the report that the Rockets would be willing to move players to pick up picks is accurate, wouldn't that suggest that they feel that Butler would be willing to come to them? Like, why would they give up Capella or Gordon or Tucker to get a draft pick back, only to have Butler say, "Nah, I want to stay in Philly"?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mike. Maybe they just think that they can, ultimately entice him. He obviously, he has some ties to the Houston area. Maybe they think they can play on that friendship that he has with, Chris Paul and James Harden. But I think it's more a matter of, Daryl Morey, since he took over that job in 2007, has been, kind of even ahead of the curve in terms of he's been a really star-oriented general manager. He's heavy on making sure that they have, as many stars as possible, and you kind of figure out the rest of the roster later. And I think in Jimmy, he just sees a guy that he thinks would fit well with James, that would do a lot of the dirty work that maybe they don't have a player of that caliber that can do at this point. So I think that it's something that they hope that they could probably sell Jimmy, but I don't think at this point that they would have, any indication specifically that he's, itching to get to Houston and ahead of anywhere else in the league.
Michael Kaskey-Blomain covers the Sixers for 97.3 ESPN.com. Covers the NBA for 24/7 Sports. He's a member of the Pro Basketball Writers Association. So, MKB, let me ask you this then. Sunday at 6, do the Sixers present their best offer to Butler because of this? Wouldn't they have to?
Yeah, Mike, I think, if anything, these rumors and reporting puts pressure on the Sixers to, not only give an offer, as soon as possible, but also make it, their best possible offer. They're obviously in the driver's seat financially in terms of they can give Jimmy not only more money, but more years than any other team in the league. And, I think it's been reported, and from what I've heard, it would be, Jimmy wants that 5-year max deal. And if the Sixers, are able to offer him that at, as soon as the time opens on Sunday evening, and they're there with that 5-year max offer, I think that, I think that neutralizes a lot of the other outside noise, and I think it's hard for him to turn it down in that situation. If they come with a shorter deal, 4 years, the same amount of time that you can get elsewhere, something short of the max, then, maybe it leaves it open for him and his team to start taking some of these outside meetings and consider other things. But, if the Sixers want Jimmy, I think if they have to come with that max offer as soon as possible, I think if they do that, there's a good chance he'll be back in Philly.
Right. It's almost like if they give him 190, then he's like, all right, you got me. But if they lowball him, that's when he might say, you know what? You might want to listen to Houston's offer.
Mike, I think that's basically the exact thing. I think if you lowball him, if you don't come with the full 5 years and you try to go with the 4 years, that's a move that you can end up shooting yourself in the foot, because at that point, it's something similar with what happened in Minnesota. He felt, kind of disrespected that, Karl Towns and Wiggins were getting paid ahead of him. I think he's, a prideful guy. He's, fought for his spot in the league to be an all-star, to be deserving of this max. He's put himself in position to get this full 5-year deal. And I think, if you give him that, you're in a good position. If you hold back, like you said, and you lowball him or you cut a year off the deal and leave the door open for other teams to, give him a more enticing offer, I think that's a bad situation for the Sixers if they want to bring him back.
What do you think of the return for Philly? If Jimmy Butler says, look, you better listen to Houston, I'm not interested in re-signing, even if he gets 5/190 and he's like, look, I just don't want to come back here, do you feel comfortable with the return if you're Elton Brand?
I don't think so, Mike. I don't think that that's something that they'll pursue. At least from what I've heard. If Jimmy's going to leave, he leaves, and you'll at least have the cap space left over to make your own moves rather than kind of, get a return of, some guys. They're nice pieces, but at the end of the day, they're guys that you could find similar, contributors on the open market. I think ultimately you come with the full deal. If he turns it down, he turns it down, and you move on from there with the salary cap space that you have left over, rather than trying to, get assets back that you wouldn't necessarily, maybe not even go after on the open market. So I just don't see, it's something the Rockets are pushing. I think all the reporting that's coming out from, Woj and ESPN is coming from, Houston's side. And I think it's something that they want to push that narrative, but it just doesn't seem, I don't see the benefit of the Sixers doing that if Jimmy were to leave.
So you think the Sixers would rather just let him walk, get the cap space, rather than take on Gordon, Capella, Tucker?
That's the vibe that I'm kind of getting, Mike. Because Capella's a guy, he's not going to want to come here to be a backup to Embiid, so you'd have to flip him. Gordon's a nice piece, and Tucker's a nice piece, but at the same time, taking them on, you strap yourself cap-wise, flexibility-wise. If Butler's going to walk, the Sixers can still offer Tobias the full max going forward. They could bring JJ back, and then they could use that money that would have gone to Jimmy to target some other, maybe not superstar level players, but some other nice pieces on the market, like a PJ Tucker or an Eric Gordon, that could complement Joel and Ben and the other guys well, rather than having their cap space dictated by guys that are giving them in a trade.
Interesting. What about if they were able to trade one of those guys and get a pick? And, picks in the NBA are tricky. I don't know what level of pick would take it. Would it take to say, okay, that team's going to be not very good, so we're interested in that? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it, a team that's going to be a 20-win team, a 30-win team, to where you would say, okay, we would take like a pick that's in the teens. Does that get it done? Like, what level of pick would Houston have to entrepreneur? Because apparently they're trying to, offer these guys for picks. What kind of pick should they be looking for? And would you feel comfortable with, if you're Philly, to say, all right, we would take that pick?
I mean, if anything, Mike, I think it would have to be a pick of a team that's going to be projected in the lottery in the coming season. But I think, Elton Brand has made it pretty clear, both by the moves that he made on draft night and the things that he said. The Sixers window, they feel like, is now, and they're not necessarily looking to, add a lot of young players to this mix that they have now, and putting it off a season to get a draft pick in the future. Obviously that's something that this franchise did for years under Sam and into Brian's tenure, but they're firmly in win now mode. So it would have to be, a pretty appealing pick to make Elton feel, okay with kind of pushing the buck to another summer, instead of, using that extra cap space now to put, the best possible team on the floor for this season to try to win next June.
There was a tweet from Woj recently that said the Sixers feel confident. They're expressing confidence that they can bring both guys back. Should Sixer fans feel confident that come Sunday that Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler, and maybe even J.J. Redick will all be back in Philadelphia?
I think the Sixers, the franchise itself, should feel confident, Mike, because they're in the driver's seat for all three of those guys. Like we said, if they want, if they are willing to go into the luxury tax, if they think that this team is, a couple bounces away from truly winning, a title or true contention, then yeah, you give Jimmy, the full max, you give Tobias the max, and you give JJ, whatever he really wants, and you run it back. The fan base, I think, should be slightly more skeptical, because I think the ownership group has proved to be, I don't want to say not trustworthy, but, I don't think they have gained the full trust of the fan base at this point. So, are they going to do that to make sure that the group is ran back? I think that remains a question mark. But if they want it to happen, they're in the driver's seat to make it happen. So it's definitely a good possibility.
Michael Kaskey-Blomain covers the Sixers for 97.3 ESPN.com, covers the NBA for 24/7 Sports, Professional Hoops Writers Association. He's a member there as well, so well-versed in the NBA. If the Sixers do look out there in free agency, any under-the-radar names that they might have some interest in?
Yeah, Mike, I had up, on the site today, I heard yesterday that they're targeting Terrence Ross as from the Orlando Magic guard, as a potential option. The team's first priority is, basically a version of run it back where
what kind of money would he be looking for?
Bring back Jimmy, bring back Tobias.
What kind of money is he
bring
looking
back
for?
JJ, potentially even bring back Mike Scott, roll it out with a very similar lineup. If they do that, obviously their cap space outside of those guys would be extremely limited. And a guy like, Danny Green or Terrence Ross will probably get out, get a larger offer elsewhere. But if they end up, missing on any of those guys, whether it be JJ, Tobias, Jimmy, and they do have some, cap space left over, Terrence Ross is a guy that that they will target, pretty quickly. Floor spacer, about a 38% shooter from long distance, would fit in well, off the bench or potentially as a spot starter in certain situations. And Danny Green, obviously off Toronto, a similar role. That's two guys that I think the Sixers have, I've been told that they have their eye on pretty heavily as a, sort of a plan B, other than, bringing it back with the same guys, which is obviously plan A for the team.
Yeah, what kind of money? Is that just like you're hoping, or is that, is he made like $10 million last year. So is he a guy that if somebody walks, you're involved in there, or do they like to add him in addition to Butler and Harris and Redick?
A situation, Mike, where I think it's where somebody walks. Maybe if Redick walks, if they end up losing out on Jimmy and they have, some space left over, because he's, like you said, he's been about a $10 million player for the past couple of years, probably on par for a similar contract. It's not a slight bump based off, just the way the league's going in terms of his ability to space the floor. So that's a situation where they're looking like, all right, they've lost one of the three guys that you just mentioned. They're looking to fill in. They would look toward him in that situation then.
MKB, Michael Kaskey-Blomain, 97.3 ESPN.com. Of course, at The Real Mike KB on Twitter. Give him a follow there for the Sixers and the NBA, 24/7 Sports. And he joined us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Sunday should be wild. We'll see what happens. Michael will be in touch soon, pal.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
You too. MKB, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.